Namaste everyone. I'm Ritu Rathore, your host for today's show on Infinity Foundation channel.
Namaste Ritu. I want you to be one of the hosts. We'll have a few others so that gradually more and more people can be hosting on my channel. This will not be a personal channel anymore, but Infinity Foundation channel with multiple shows, different days of the week, hosted by different people. And each person can have their own format, their own style, their own personality. And the idea is to build up young budding, enterprising, leaders. And this is a very nice way to do that. Each show, the host will prepare, do the research, find out who the guests are, what the topics are, take ownership. And as far as I'm concerned, gradually I can fade away or move on. But I'm delighted to be a guest whenever you want me to be. So let's get started.
I want to talk to you about the judiciary of India, the judicial activism, the constitutional morality, which is bulldozing its way into the Indic culture, the Hindu culture, and recently we are just witnessing what is happening in Sabrimala. I want your view on this because this is something very disturbing that is taking place here.
Let me just tell the viewers that what is happening in Sabrimala, I am predicting is going to happen with the Kumbh Mela. They are researching, then they'll put cases. They'll say that human rights are being violated, women should be allowed to do this, men are doing something, women are not doing, minorities are not doing this. They're gathering some data. They will say, okay, why aren't Muslims allowed and Christians allowed? Everybody should be, Ganga belongs to everybody. So in other words, they're going to secularize the Kumbh Mela. They're going to remove the sacred element. They're going to trivialize the real agamas, the real procedures being carried out, the yagna, and turn it into symbolism and clip art and pop culture and attack it. So what I'm going to now tell you about Sabrimala goes beyond just Kerala. This is going to hit the North India, and actually an attack on Kumbh Mela. I've predicted for the last several years. I put up shows, I've written about it, but I don't think the authorities have done anything. We said that this whole Harvard-driven project and academic-driven project from the West to study the Kumbh Mela for its glory and greatness and profile it and measure all the data has a hidden agenda. It looks on the surface that they're studying it, but what they're studying is like, CBI coming to your office and studying your company. It's not like to help you out. It's not for, it's to figure out what they can go after you. So this is more like an investigation for human rights purposes. That is what is being done, and it has been sold to foolish Indians, foolish gurus and foolish politicians as though they're doing us a favor. So I was very disappointed that recently Yogi Adityanath came up with a statement that we welcome all foreign academic scholars to come and research and study Kumbh Mela. Now, what a joke. I mean, it means that all the reports I put up have fallen on deaf ears. The West is very good at infiltrating. They're very good at disguising themselves. They come as people who are doing bhajans and who are doing kirtans and who are wearing dhotis, and they know a lot of Sanskrit, and they are impressing our people who are very ignorant and getting in the door and saying, we are here to help you. And you see, this business of helping is actually an infiltration. So I am very concerned that they have managed to hijack at the level of Yogi Adityanath, who made, in my opinion, a completely irresponsible decision, made it public, did not consult the people who have actually researched this issue like we have on the Kumbh Mela, and just it's in the last month or two, this thing came out that Yogi Adityanath welcomes Western researchers and scholars to come and study the Kumbh Mela. Now, if there is studies to be done, which I'm sure is a good idea, don't we have our own people? Why do we need outsiders to come and research us? Why doesn't the HRD and Minister of Culture come up with a Swadeshi team, an Indian team, to go and research whatever they need to research? What is it that Harvard will tell us about Kumbh Mela that we ourselves aren't able to? This is very strange that we are so dependent and so colonized right up to the level of an important chief minister. So I'm quite upset at this. Now, going back to Sabrimala, what has happened in Sabrimala is the judiciary does not really understand Hindu dharma, does not understand who is a deity. This deity is not some symbolism, some god in the sky. Unlike the Abrahamic religions, our deity comes as a guest and lives here in the world, lives with us. and we invite the deity with a certain performance of a ritual. There is a certain pran pratishtha carried out to invite the deity. Then the deity comes and lives in this world, and so this is not a statue as a symbol, this is actually the living person. So we have a deal with the deity when we do pran pratishtha. We enter into an agreement saying, I want you to come in this form, I will be doing this seva to you, and this is how we will live. So when Sabrimala or any deity is established, any temple is established, it is done with this kind of a deal, and then all the successors who take over the care of that temple and the deity have to comply. And it is not the jurisdiction or authority of a Supreme Court or any court to interfere with that agreement between the worshippers and the deity. And especially to say that it ought to be like this, it ought to be like that, you are basically interfering in a contract between two parties. Between humans and a deity, there is a contract, and the Supreme Court does not even understand what this contract is all about, does not understand the reason it exists the way it does. So the issue of women have rights, of course they have rights. There are a lot of temples for women. There are also temples where men are not allowed, where the deal with the deity is of a different kind. So in our case, unlike in the Abrahamic religions, the deity takes multiple forms. The deity can take a male form, a female form, the deity can take a child form, in which case adult things don't happen, it's a child in that case. The deity can take a bachelor form. The deity can take various forms as per the invocation of this pran pratishtha, and so in accordance with the form taken, the deity is looked after. The deity is treated as a person. You give breakfast, lunch, dinner, you give meals, you change the clothes, you give a bath to the deity, you put the deity to bed. Basically, you are role playing a certain relationship with God in form, and that is part of how we worship. We worship the divine, we worship Bhagwan in close proximity, like a friend, like a relative. That is how we evolve ourselves and get closer to the divine, rather than worshipping a God in the sky. That worship is also available, but that's not the only worship. So this business of bringing the divine in form into our house or into a temple is something that the Judeo-Christian rejected. So they rejected it, they called it paganism, they called it pantheism. Fine, that is their prerogative. But you cannot the Supreme Court is superimposing that view on us. Okay, and the Supreme Court really needs a good workshop. Some gurus should be brought together to give them a workshop on Hinduism 101. Right from the Supreme Court on down to the courts, they really are ill-informed and uneducated on this particular matter. So, when you are judging on something very sophisticated like nuclear policy or something very sophisticated on a certain technology, it is normal for the court to get experts. They bring in subject matter experts to educate them. There's nothing insulting about it. So why haven't they brought Hindu Dharma subject matter experts to come and brief them and coach them about what is this deity all about? I haven't seen expert testimony from some of the leading gurus in India being solicited by the Supreme Court. So I am quite concerned that this is and I'm happy that there is a strong reaction, because this secularizing, removing the sacred from our tradition has been going on for a very long time. And the Sabrimala is a flashpoint, and I'm really looking forward to an outcome which is favorable for us, because I think if Sabrimala falls, the next will be the Kumbh Mela.
Are our judges so ignorant about this particular fact? Is this intentional, or is it something that they are doing out of ignorance?
Well, there has been this import of British judiciary, British and American ideas into constitutional democracy, right from the birth of the nation, which is a Nehruvian kind of constitutional development, and then the whole judiciary. Until a few years ago, they used to wear these funny wigs and all that. What a joke. In a very tropical hot climate, you are trying to mimic, you are some Gora Sahab, because they used to wear it, so we are going to wear this wig. What a joke. I mean, what an insult to a civilization that you now going to step into the shoes of your previous colonizers, of your previous masters, to pretend like you're one of them. I mean, that's really inferiority complex. So I'm glad they gave that up. But a real honest review of the constitution vis-a-vis its take on the dharma of India is needed. What we have is a clash of civilizations within India, between the Indian civilization and the colonial civilization. So I want you to take this as an important statement. We have a clash of civilizations in India between the Dharma civilizations and the colonized civilization. That is the clash that's going on. This colonized civilization is the Breaking India forces that I've been talking about. It has one foot overseas where they are being fed and one foot in India where there's a large ecosystem supporting it. There is news that the head of Twitter has put up a banner, an anti-Brahmin banner, and you have these people from NDTV and various leftists and all of them, and he's holding these events, you know, for women's rights and women's causes. Come on, I mean, would he hold such a thing against Jews or against Muslims in another country? I mean, he's probably ill-informed, but you know, the ecosystem of the radical left in India has captured this kind of a corporate structure. You look at Microsoft, who runs the Bill Gates Foundation in India, you look at who runs the Facebook people in Facebook in India, who runs this YouTube, all of the American social media, all of the American philanthropy, all of these corporate people have been co-opted, or they have merged with the Breaking India forces in India. So you may have people with a Hindu name, but they are actually very radically kind of in bed with these kind of international forces. So this issue of Breaking India is multifaceted, many layers, many moving parts, and I don't think our people are in policy and in senior positions really understand it. Those who understand it don't want to mess with it because it's too controversial, it's too risky, and they don't want to stick their neck out. So what you have raised is a very big issue. It's not a simple just Sabrimala kind of issue and one decision by the Supreme Court which is a question. The issue is a very deep issue about the very ethos and thinking of the elite in India, especially the English language speaking elite like us.
RTE is something which is against our own concept of index studies. How would you evaluate it? We have seen so many schools shut down because of these infrastructural rules that have been forced on them. How would you view this? Has RTE benefited our education? What do you feel about this, and why HRD ministry has not taken any steps to reform it?
Let me tell you how deep and long thinking, strategic thinking the Western intervention is. Okay, when most of the world was under colonial rule in the early 20th century, there were a lot of voices that they have to be decolonized, they have to be given freedom. So the question was, what constitutes a nation state? Who is fit to govern? Who is fit to self-rule? At what point is a country ready that you give them independence? Because the excuse given was that they are not fit to rule, and they are not able to give good proper rights and services to their own citizens. So we, the colonial powers, are doing them a favor. That was the argument being given. So rules had to be created on what constitutes a legitimate nation state. So these rules of what is a nation state were very much in accordance with the Western idea of a nation state, not in accordance with what would be a Rashtra. So this concept of nation state must have this, that was sold, and our own people, colonized people, started accepting these in order to negotiate freedom. So a lot of the negotiation from below with the people who are above is done on terms that the powerful people are setting. So this is how the nation state, the constitution, idea of what constitutes genocide, what is the definition of religious freedom, all kinds of international laws have been framed because of a certain agenda that the West has in their framework. Now, when you look at the research being done by Templeton Foundation, by Ford Foundation, by Rockefeller Foundation in India on things like what should be the rights of this or what should be the rights of that, all the way to education, all the way to public health, the ideas are such that to be legitimized as what constitutes medicine, what constitutes education, what constitutes religion, all of these are framed in a way which is not friendly to the Indian civilization. Because the Indian civilization people did not do Purva Paksha, did not participate, did not have enough voice, were not intelligent and smart enough. Those who were sold out. and those who did not sell out were often very mumbo jumbo, bumbling kind of people. They did not know enough, they were not sophisticated enough. Many of them are like village bumpkins. I mean, I'm sorry, but many of the people who are representing our traditional voice are more like village bumpkins. I mean, they're easily manipulated. They don't really properly understand the other side. So, right to education and the definition of what constitutes a school, what must be checked off to be a school, is similar to what must be checked off as a house of worship and religion, and what must be a court of law, and so on and so forth. All of those have been done without proper respect and proper representation of our civilization. So, in the case of right to education, as you mentioned, there are certain laws like there have to be a boundary wall. Now, in our tradition, you sit under a tree. You sit under a tree and you have an education. What boundary wall? Education is not just boundaried out of the rest of life. It is part of life. You live in the family and you being educated. You are educating all your life. And the idea of the respect for the guru, the teacher, how you behave, what is the guru's behavior towards you, what is your behavior, what's the role of parents in education, all of that is well defined and well understood in our tradition. Right to education did not seem to consult that. So, our own right to education, all these things got framed, and then they passed through law. And the people who are the keepers of our dharma did not participate as in a proper way. You can blame them now, the other people, that they put this RTE on us. But where were the think tanks? Where were the Hindu think tanks figuring out what should be our right for education? Where is the Hindu policy on education? Why didn't we develop that, and why didn't we do the activism at that time? So, of course, better late than never. Now that we have this RTE and our government has imposed it, it is absolutely right for people like you to point out that this is not Hindu friendly, because the rules of RTE are very biased against Hindu schools.
Precisely, Rajiv ji. How do you see the intellectual Kshatriyas, the term that you have coined for today's warriors, this movement, how do you see it going forward? Next 5 years, what's your vision?
First of all, the term intellectual Kshatriya already had existed, somebody else had used it, but they had not turned it into a movement or given it shape in terms of here is the workshop, so I'm basically taking a term that exists and giving it substance, filling it up with a real lot of energy. So my idea is I'm going to take my books, the 5 or 6 books I've already written, turn them into e-learning courses as a training for Kshatriyas, intellectual Kshatriyas. And I have 15 more books in the pipeline which I intend to write. And I want to shift my focus to writing my remaining books and turning them into online e-learning courses to train intellectual Kshatriyas who know about these books and who have the knowledge in them. So I want to train a 1 lakh army, 100,000 graduates from these curriculums, and they'll become the intellectual Kshatriya backbone, a home team, and they will self-govern. I don't want to govern them. They have to, I'm supplying the knowledge, they have to organize, they have to elect leaders, people like you and many other people. We have many young people that ought to take on the leadership role. They should then take this group of people, the knowledge that they have been given, and move it further. So I want to take the ragtag, unorganized, few Kshatriyas here and there, and try to give them some organization by creating some courses that are required courses that they must take. So if everybody has taken these courses, they'll have a common vocabulary. I have also come up with about 70 or 80 special words and phrases that I have utilized over time, like breaking India forces, like Hindu phobia, like what is meant by atrocity literature, like what is meant by Wendy's children, all kind of things that I've coined, neo-Orientalism, So these kind of terms, I'm going to teach a 10-minute definition and overview for every term in a little video. And I'll have a few hundred of these videos, 50 or 60 or 70 of them will define the terms, and then there'll be videos which will elaborate further. So courses of this sort will give our 1 lakh army of IKs a common vocabulary, a common cause, a common ideology, a common framework. And I think that's the way. It's not brick and mortar university institution, it's not official institution incorporated. It will be the way of thinking. the way of thinking and framing and the way of the vocabularies will be common, and that I think will be the way to create this IK army.
Rajiv ji, very best to you, very best to us. May Dharma win. It should win. With this, I am going to put an end to today's talk. It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom. I hope the audiences enjoyed this show. Thank you very much, Rajiv ji. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste.